This is the Pentax P30t. My very first video for YouTube was on the Pentax P30. I really love that camera, but there was one thing missing from it, and this camera I hope would address that issue. The P30 is a manual camera with auto override. This camera is a manual camera with aperture priority in addition, and I really like that because I'm a big fan of aperture priority cameras. It's sort of what I was brought up on. On the other hand, this camera is a little bit different from the P30 in other respects. The P30 was mostly metal, and this is substantially plastic. That said, it still works rather nicely. The actions on it are really smooth. It's a really easy camera to use. It feels snug in your hand. Everything fits. Everything is in the place you'd expect it to be. It is really very well designed. Right, so a little walk around the controls. First thing I've got to do is turn the camera on, which is this switch here. Now, the lever wind on this side is a 130-degree throw, single action winder, and the shutter button is in the middle of the shutter speed dial. On this particular model it works exactly as it should. Some models have a fault where the wind on mechanism gets caught somewhere in the bottom. However, this one's fine. Shutter speeds are from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second, plus B for bulb, and the X sync, the flash sync on this camera is 1/100th of a second. I put it onto A and it becomes aperture priority. I set the aperture, for instance f8, and the camera works out the time for me. Put it to f22, see if we get a difference. As you can see, it seems to work. This side of the camera, the on-off switch, as I said before, plus the self-timer. If I depress this part of the switch and move the switch forward into its forward position, then when I press the shutter, I get a flashing LED light here, which speeds up just before the exposure is taken. And as you can see from that, the lens shuts down properly, so that works well as well. The camera body has electrical contacts that maintain the open aperture metering, and this button on the side acts as a depth of field preview. Film winder is next door to the film counter, so you can see how many shots you've taken, and this side we have the film rewind. When I get to the end of the film, I depress the clutch underneath, and that allows me to wind the film back into the camera. Easy peasy. On this side of the lens mount I have a button marked ML. This stands for memory lock. In other words, it's an exposure lock. So if I think that I need to photograph exposing for the ground, I can point the camera at the ground, lock the exposure, move the camera up and rephotograph. Here is my cable release connector, and that's about it for the front of the camera. If I turn the camera over, you can see it's got quite a nice moulded grip on the back, and it has a little window in the back here so you can tell which film it's put in it. To open the camera, I pull the film winder back up, and that allows me to pop the camera open. As you can see, it's an electronic vertically running shutter, and the camera takes DX coded films. So you can't set the ISO or ASA as it was then manually. You need a film like this which has a coding pattern imprinted on the film, and that connects with the contacts inside the camera, and that tells the camera what ISO the film is. Unfortunately on this one you can't override it, so you can't play with the film by changing the ISO rating. However, let's see where the dot is on this. Red dot to red dot. Put it back together. On the top we have a hot shoe. You can see it's got two extra electrical points here which connect to Pentax dedicated flash units, and at the bottom you can see the only other thing other than the clutch is the battery release, which opens up like this, and it takes two button cell batteries. Really, that's about it. It gives you access to the KA mount series of lenses, so there are hundreds and hundreds of lenses out there in the second-hand market that you can use on this camera. This particular one has got a Tokina 28 to 70 f3.5 to f4.5 zoom. Not the best lens in the world, but it does work, and the whole thing just works. It just really works, and that's what makes the Pentaxes such beautiful cameras. Is it the best Pentax ever? Probably not. I guess the classic really is the Pentax K1000. That is the benchmark to which we can judge all Pentaxes, and compared to that, this is a little bit plasticky and it's probably not as durable. However, that said, I paid £15 for this, and for £15 that is a superb piece of kit. Back when it was new, about 1990, I would have loved to have had a camera like this for that sort of money. So Pentax P30t, 35mm single lens reflex camera, superb bit of kit.